can't even make this up. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of SwingBadder, your weekly recap. And as always, Dad, Todd, welcome in. Let's get comfy. The Batter 5 is upon us. Before we go into the Batter 5, though, I want to remind everyone, we picked some teams before we did this. Let's see if they made it. I picked the Guardians/Indians. Todd, I believe you picked the Brew Crew. And Dad, I think you picked the Twins. Is that correct?
I did.
So starting right off. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. No, because I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good.
There you go, everybody. That's how you start an episode. I object to my own objection, and now I'm going to.
I'm objecting. I'm vehemently objecting before the argument is even made because I know where this is going.
Just what everyone
go ahead. I picked the Brewers, and I was right for one night.
Fair. So we start off, we had two teams, everybody, two teams that were perfect. And what I mean by perfect is they had no wins on the week. That is a little bit difficult as this happens in baseball, but we had three teams competing for it this week. One of the teams did fall away from that. The Kansas City Royals and the Washington Nationals are 1 and 2, and Kansas City Royals are number 1 because they did the thing that we always love. They only scored 11 runs on the week. I think that's the lowest of any team scoring. They tied another fan favorite who scored 11 runs. It is difficult to score 11 runs in a week, and they were successful in doing it. They got swept by the Yankees, and here's the worst part. They got swept by the A's, and they scored 11 runs, and the A's have the worst ERA in baseball. The A's are that's the team you want to score a ton of runs against. So Kansas City has a run problem. If you look at the team overall, they are struggling to get people across home plate, similar to what our Rangers used to struggle with. And so this has been kind of happening on a regular basis. They're in 4th place now in the AL Central, and their payroll is $217 million. Their record's 34 and 38. The AL Central, which we were all surprised with, had a rough week this week, and they're all coming back down to earth. And the Kansas City Royals are my number 1 pick of the week, finishing first place. The second time they finished first place this year.
It seems like a team of extremes. You're either first place in the Batter 5 or you're not on it at all. Pick a lane. Listen, there's only a negative 28 run differential for them on the season. And I don't know. I think they're right about where they're meant to be. They'll probably be on the Batter 5, I would say 3 or 4 more times by the end of the season. I don't think they're going to be there every single week, but they had a bad run. They've lost 6. It's rough.
So their runs scored on the season in the American League only is 237 total. That is behind, I believe, everyone, including the White Sox. So when you say they've had they're bringing guys up from the minors because they need to score. They're not scoring.
Pirates?
I said American League. Fair point.
God, why do you have to put these disclaimers on it?
Because it sounds so much better. Yes, they're only ahead of.
That's brutal.
They're behind the Rockies and ahead of the Pirates in all of baseball. You're correct, but still, that's your company, everybody. That's Kansas City's
All right,
company.
so maybe it'll be more than 3 or 4 times before the end of the season. Maybe it'll be 7 or 8. But I don't know. How do you have a team with Bobby Witt on it and only score 237 runs?
Because you need more.
It's so crazy to me.
Because you need more than one player.
Yeah.
They got those 2 Calzone Kids.
They have been.
Well, that's the thing. Why do you
they keep going out for Italian. They're like, hey, all right.
They'll be back.
Quintino's leading the team in home runs.
Yeah, they'll be back.
The next team is the Washington Nationals, which is, we remember, they did something this year that was amazing. They scored 9+ runs, 4 straight games. They were on fire. Well, this week they were not. They were 0-6 with a -12. They got swept by the Marlins. The Marlins got swept last week by the Rockies. The Marlins are in the basement until they played the Nationals and swept them. These are the 2 teams that the Mets look forward to playing all the time because the Mets swept the Nationals this week, and then the Marlins swept them. And it wasn't like the Marlins were on fire going into that series. I thought this was going to be our batter 5 matchup of the week, but the Marlins are clear and away so much better. The Nationals now have the same amount of losses as the Marlins. None of this is good, but as we expected on the NL East, Nationals and Marlins are battling it out for last place. Nothing really shocking.
I'm not shocked. The Washington Nationals, when they were playing the Mets, there were a couple games where they actually were up early, and at no point did I think they would win.
Very secure.
I was very it was one of those things where you're like, we got to win these. I just never thought we were going to lose.
I agree with you. I watched those games and I was like, yeah, this feels like a Mets win.
Right.
The Nationals,
even when they didn't have any runs going into like the 7th or 8th inning, I was like, it's just a matter of time.
The Nationals are like, please bring in someone who won't. Dang it.
Yep, that's it.
Third place is pretty special. Dad, it's your pick. Minnesota Twins finished in third. They were 1-5. They didn't have a perfect week, but they did get one win. But here's what's shocking about the Minnesota Twins this week. They finished with a minus 30 run differential. And they lost their series to the Rangers 2-1. They won a game against the Rangers, but they allowed the Rangers to score 34 runs in 3 games. The Rangers are one of the worst offenses in baseball, and they scored 34 runs in 3 games in one of the most wild weeks ever for the Texas Rangers and the Minnesota Twins. The Twins with a minus 30 by far, when you get into the 30 or 40 range, you're setting records on the batter 5 and you deserve to be there. The Twins pitching was terrible. So like Kansas City didn't score against the A's and the Rangers scored a ton against the Twins. Both of those do not equal a good week.
How did you predict this?
Dad?
Like, first of all, it's a gutsy pick playing the Rangers, you know?
Right?
Who, had an explosion of runs like a zit popping after there's nothing going on. Up runs all over the field. That's a good call, Dad.
And just so everyone knows, who did the Texas Rangers play after the Minnesota Twins? Because clearly they played a team that was not as... They played the White Sox.
Right, White Sox. And
they only scored 10 runs against the White Sox. So it's not like, again, it wasn't like it was... They had 60 runs this week. They literally went right back to themselves right after they left Minnesota. So
my vote for schizophrenic team of the year is for Texas. This team is like pick an identity.
They had a great week, though. They had a great week. Dad, any comments for the your AL Central pick, the Twins?
It was I just thought they were due for a slump. They're a good team. They've been playing well. I just thought they're going to have a little slump. They'll be back, but
so the Twins were again another team in the AL Central that had a bad week. They're 36-35 with $145 million payroll. They're in second place, but if you look at that division, Detroit feels like they are never coming back. Like this is over.
I'm looking at that division right now. 5 teams, all on losing streaks.
Yes.
All 5 of them.
Yes. And we would have had 4 teams on the AL Central if it wasn't for some creative mathing. The 4th place team, this was going for a perfect week, was the St. Louis Cardinals. They were 1-6 on the week. Minus 8 run differential, not that terrible, which is why the Twins were ahead of them. They were swept by the Blue Jays, who are having a great year, and then they lost 3 or 4 to the Brew Crew, which is really bad because it's in their division. St. Louis was second, and now they are 4th in their division. This is similar to the Braves to me in the fact that the Cardinals started poorly. They cannot afford to have more of these kind of bursts because it just sets them so far back. They're 37-35, which is much better than the Braves because they have had a nice series of wins, several weeks. So if they're on the batter 5 again this upcoming week, that would be kind of evening out the last couple weeks they've had, which would be bad news for them. But 37-35 puts them in 4th place in a very competitive NL Central, besides the first place team, which is the Cubs.
Well, they're tied for third with the Reds.
Correct.
Let's not, fourth, third, potato.
And the Reds have never been on this list.
Yeah.
Which is shocking. And then the fifth place, we lost a team. This was the only team that's not been on there. It was my pick for the week, the Cleveland Guardians. They were 1-5 this week. The biggest problem that they had going into it was they faced off against Seattle. And Seattle hadn't won in a while. And then Seattle swept them. So this was a bad week for Cleveland as they got swept. Dad, to your point, the AL Central, the White Sox also were 1-5. The only team that had a remotely good record was Detroit at 3-3. So the Guardians are fifth. They are a -26 in run differential. They're currently in third place in the AL Central, but they're all fighting for a wild card at this point.
So I had a question for you. Like, why did you pick the Guardians over the White Sox?
So there are certain teams that I now give the advantage to the runner, if you will. So the Pirates, the White Sox, the Rockies are all expected to be here. The Guardians played Seattle. Both teams going into the week, I believe, were Cleveland was 1-2. Seattle was 0-3 when they faced off. And the Guardians got swept. The White Sox won their first game of the week and then proceeded to get swept at the end of the week, which is what I kind of expect. So if you're a better team and you get swept by it, Seattle was struggling. They've been on our batter 5 here last week. So this is kind of what happened. So that's why Cleveland bypassed the White Sox.
Not because you picked Cleveland.
No, not at all. Also, a big shout out to Mr. Steve Kaiser, my good friend who is a Cleveland fan. He listened to our last episode and he texted me on Sunday and said, never say their name again in the batter 5. They were playing really good. And then he literally texted me on Sunday. He goes, now we're on the batter 5. We didn't win it all this week. Thanks so much for picking them. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. So if we look at who's been where for the batter 5, and when you look at this from a standpoint of like, Colorado still leads everyone with 9. They've had 2 weeks where we haven't seen them. Congratulations to Colorado. The White Sox have 5 times they've been on this list. Miami Marlins have 4 times. None of them are on there. You have 3 times. Washington moved up to third 3 times this time. This third time on the list. 2 times on the list. Kansas City, St. Louis, and Minnesota. And then Cleveland is now the first time entering. The teams that have not been on it, if you want to pick a team, you have the Yankees, the Mets, the Rays, which just swept the Mets, Detroit, Houston, Cincinnati, Milwaukee, the Dodgers, and the Giants, who just got a lot better. Those are the teams that have not been on the list.
Mets are going 0-6 this week.
So your pick, I always.
They just lost 3 in a row. They're not going on a 9-game losing streak.
There are, in the human race, in all of humanity, there are things that we as humans do not expect. One is the Spanish Inquisition, as Monty Python famously said, and the other is a sweep by the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays never go anywhere. They never travel to a city, and that city's baseball team goes, we could get swept. Never happens. It never happens. Everybody always expects, well, the Rays are playing good, but we'll take 1 of 3. Maybe we could win the series here. Nobody, even when the Rays are playing better than everybody else, nobody ever expects the Rays to win. Name 4 players on the Rays. Without looking, name them. Name 4 players on the Rays. Don't say Fred McGriff. He retired.
Crime dog.
Wade Boggs. What are you going to do? Wade Boggs, Fred McGriff, and Evan Longoria? Is that that's who you're going to pick? Nobody knows anybody on the Rays.
Randy Arozarena, but he's on Seattle.
Right, yeah. Nobody knows anybody on the Rays until they get traded or they leave the Rays. They are the Mr. Cellophane of the Major League Baseball. And the fact that we got swept by the Rays, this is a sign of things to come. Now we're going to Atlanta. We're going to Philly. This is it. This is where
You're gonna go
it's a curve.
6 against
It's
the
a
two
curve,
teams
and now this is the peak, and now we're entering this dark time. It's a very dark time. It's like when Apollo 13 went behind the moon, and you're like praying that they come out the other side and everybody's alive. We're gonna go to Atlanta, we're gonna go to Philly, and we're just kind of pray that on the 23rd, when we show up at Citi Field, that somebody's alive on the team. That's what we're hoping for at the end of this road trip.
Todd,
Mets are
I'm
0-6. Run differential is going to be like -20. I'm telling you, the pitching is imploding. It's imploding.
Todd, would you call your friend Frank the Tank?
He's right. He's right this time.
I know you got to get some of those drugs the doctor put him on. Calm down.
I feel you feel it. It's tense. It's not good.
So pause, breathe. We don't need.
You just know where I stand. This is the week I'm picking the Mets.
I'm just telling you, the Mets are, like Dad said, they're 0-3. They play the Braves and the Phillies. The chances of them being on the batter 5 this week, I think, is very, very, very unlikely. They wouldn't be my pick. I was going to ask you how you felt the week went. They swept the Nationals and went on to get swept by the Rays, which, again, I attribute that more to the fact that the Rays were showing up and they were like, oh, it's the Rays. Who do they have? To your point, even the Mets players didn't know who they had. And so they lost because they didn't read any scouting reports because they're like, wait, we thought they didn't have anything. The Rays are a good team this year. If you look at this,
they sure are.
The Rays are in second in the AL East. They're only 3.5 back of the Yankees. They're pressing the Yankees. So the Mets are currently 2.5 above the Phillies. They're 13 above the Braves. You're projecting them to have a terrible week. I don't think they're going to make the batter 5 this week, but that's your projection. And then
if Dad can predict the Rockies are going to win 5 in a row, I can predict the Mets are going to lose 6.
That is the Rockies' current win streak as they won again today.
Which, again, if you haven't noticed, the Rockies the last 2 weeks have started the week off with wins. That is a great way to not end up on the batter 5. If you start week 1-0, they have literally said we're not on the batter 5 anymore. And the thing that's crazy is this is the bar. 2 wins in a week, you're not going to be on the list. It's hard to get on the list with 2 wins. You got to have a really bad 4 losses to get on the list. So,
yeah.
Luckily for us now, with all these different divisions playing each other, we almost had 4 teams from the AL Central on the list if it wasn't for the Cardinals. The Cardinals could have beat the Brewers one more time. It would have been 4 teams from the AL Central. So, NL East had 4 teams. The AL Central had 3. Who's going to get all 5 of their teams in the batter 5? That would be epic.
So wait a second. The Rockies are on a 2-game win streak, you said, right?
Yeah, because they won today. They beat Washington today.
Yeah, and
Washington's they
have 3 more games against Washington.
They're cleaning up this week.
The Rockies are like, if we were in the NL East, we would have 40 wins. Because they swept the Rockies. They swept the Marlins.
I don't think the Rockies have ever won 3 games in a week.
They beat the Marlins.
They won 3 games. They swept the Marlins.
Oh, that's right.
2 weeks ago, they swept the Marlins. And then this week, the Marlins swept the Nationals. Like everything about.
So by college football rules, the Rockies are better than the Nationals.
Yeah, they're ranked higher because they beat them last. Yes. Dad, who do you have? Who do you think is going to be on the batter 5?
Well, here's the trend. You look at teams that are playing well and haven't hit a bump yet. And I have 3 teams. I did pick 1, but I have 3 teams that are, watch out, you're about to hit a bump. One is the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay. The other one is the Boston Red Sox.
Can I pause you on the Blue Jays? The Blue Jays are also walking into this week with an 0-3 record. They swept a team and then they got swept similar to the Mets. So they're walking into this week with an 0-3.
Well, I didn't pick them as my team, but I mentioned. But no, I watched them and watched the Red Sox and watched the Cincinnati Reds, who have never been in the batter 5.
True.
And are playing pretty well. So my pick this week is the Cincinnati Reds to go to the batter five.
That's excellent. I'm really glad
That's
you
a good
picked.
call.
I'm really glad you picked the team that I have very highlighted yellow because I keep waiting for these teams to break off and end up there. So there's two teams that I really want to see hit the batter five several times. One is the Astros. I am so tired that if you look at
Not
that,
happening this week.
if you look at the
It's not
AL,
happening this week.
if you look at the AL West, they have not played bad teams and they are in first. And it's not even like we're a game above. They're just taking off. They like decided, oh, if we win a couple in a row, we're going to be okay. I believe they're 5 games up on the next team. You look at
Yeah, and look who they're playing this week.
4.5. Who are they? I don't know who they're playing this week.
You got 4 straight games against the A's,
Oh,
and then 3 games against the Angels.
well, so the AL West can't have all their teams on it because they're playing each other. Yeah, so I would like to see the Astros make it. And my pick this week, and I haven't looked at who they're playing. I just go by the vibes of as I do this every single week. I want the Giants to make it. I feel like the Giants have been close and then they have like a 3-game win streak in the middle of the week, or they always end up with 3 games. Like this week, they were 3-3. They joined this week going 0-2. So I don't want to pick the easy ones. Like the A's are 3-0 going into the week. That's the Rangers. The Rangers have won 4 in a row. Like these are teams that are like right there. They're easy. Just take the fruit. It's so easy. So to me, the Giants just made this trade. Everyone's talking about how great it's going to be. They're all excited. Batter 5 first week of Raphael's time at the Giants. Who do they play? That is the best question of the day because I have not looked at that. Todd's about to tell me how bad of an idea this is.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea. Listen, again, if Dad can say that the Rockies could win 5,
Everything's on the table.
who are we to say that the baseball guys? So they've got the Guardians for 3 games starting tomorrow, and then the Red Sox.
Oh yeah, that's going to be great.
Yes.
Is that in Boston?
No, it's in San Francisco.
No, it's Boston comes to San Fran. They're at home.
This
all
is
6 games.
All Boston plays out of their mind because they don't like him. So the Cleveland's ripe to come back. There you go, Steve. And then you have you have Boston versus the Giants after this trade. It's so perfect. Cheers. I hope the Giants. Did the Giants?
Listen, you want to? I've got the promos in San Francisco. If you want to go to these games tomorrow night versus the Guardians, it's Italian Heritage Night. It is sold. It's sold out in San Fran. So get the cannolis. Then the next night is Pixar night. There's nothing on Thursday. It's a day game, so Cleveland can get out of town. On the 20th. We've got Autism Acceptance Night, sold out. We've got the camo hat on the 21st, not sold out.
Ooh.
And the Jung Ho Lee hooded jersey on the 22nd.
So is Autism Night in reference to their trade because they have a guy crunching numbers in the back?
Because they got Boston coming in and they're like, let's welcome these geniuses.
Devers hits 4 home runs against the Red Sox.
Absolutely. In each game.
He walks away with 12 home runs in the series. For the fans that like to be in the old ocean out there, because that stadium is brilliantly placed.
Right.
What's the over-under in the gambling odds of how many balls he hits into the ocean for home runs this year for the remainder 90 games? He won't get any more.
10.5. 10.5.
10.5 is the over-under. I'll take the under.
Is he hitting for distance?
He does, yes. If you look at what he did in Boston and what he would have done in San Francisco, like he does hit it in the ocean, I think a couple times already. So like he's done it. I mean,
so listen, he's got 15 home runs already at 10.5.
I want to know. I mean, if Ohtani would have signed with the Giants, how many times he would have put the ball like into the how far? Because he hits him.
He's pitching tonight.
Yeah, that Ohtani's back on the mound. Any Playing the Padres. Any projections on Ohtani? How you guys think he's going to be back?
We're going to get more Ohtani coverage. Yay.
They're only going to let him pitch 1 or 2 innings. So
I'm going to be watching something on Comedy Central, and I'm going to get a pop-up saying, Ohtani's pitching at the bottom of the second. Don't you want to switch over to,
Yes. Yes,
True TV or Hallmark Channel where we're showing it?
I know you made fun of the Angels, but the Angels and Yankees are 10 innings into this game right now, and that's 0-0.
Really?
That's what I said when I looked at the score. I had the exact same expression. The Yankees are struggling to score runs in the last couple of games against Boston, and this isn't good.
Maybe this is the Yankees' week. Got 4 games against the Angels and 3 against the Orioles, and the Orioles are going to go on a rip here.
They've been on a rip, but I think it's the rip tide's going to catch them a little bit. But they've played much better baseball. Like they were way out, and now they're not so way out.
Well, you can kind of predict it based on these themes they have for each of the nights. Like tonight's the legacy of pride. Nobody's scoring. The 18th is bucket hat night. Then you have the 20th is Aaron Judge Superman bobblehead night. Yankees T-shirt day on the 20th. What's the mixing? Because the Superman movie's coming out.
I was thinking, everyone's getting
dress Aaron Judge up as Superman.
They were like, "How do we get someone to pay for this bobblehead?" Oh, we'll make Superman.
Yeah,
we'll make Superman.
Brothers.
They should pay for it. We don't have any money here at the Yankees. We need someone to pay for this bobblehead and sponsor it.
Yeah, and then on the 21st to 22nd, they're giving away the leftovers from last year because you're getting Yankees T-shirt day and Yankees collectible cup day.
So we covered the Mets. Todd's upset. They're playing the Atlanta and the.
No, I know it's coming.
A lot of nervousness. He's just nervous. He's facing off against his big rivals. Dad, the Diamondbacks are doing things that have never been done in baseball. They had another comeback, another ridiculous comeback. They did it against the Braves last week, and this week they did it against the Padres. They're in the 9th inning, and it's like, oh, maybe we'll score a couple runs. And it's not like 1 or 2. It's like they're way behind, and they win these games. They had a great week. They were 5-1. They were one of the better teams this week. How are you feeling about the Diamondbacks going into this week? And at this point, like the 9th inning is when you want to watch the Diamondbacks.
If I wasn't a Diamondback fan, they would be my batter 5 prediction.
Uh-oh.
They have no bullpen. I mean, literally, they have 2 closers getting Tommy John surgeries. Their best starter getting Tommy John surgery. I mean, you turn around and somebody's hurt all the time, and they've done it with smoke and mirrors, and that will come to an end. I'm sorry to say, but I'm loving it when they do it. But
were you watching the Padres game when they came back?
Yeah. It was insane. I mean, it's like, they're dying 7-3, and they got the bases loaded with nobody out. Maybe it's miracle time. So our best hitter strikes out. The next guy grounds out. I said, this game's over. Then what I didn't realize is they reversed the ground out on an appeal. So the bases were loaded, 1 out, and the next guy hits a triple, and it's suddenly 7-7. And then he comes in to score at the next bat. I said, what happened? They were just signing off, and now they win 8-7.
Yeah. They play the Blue Jays to start this week, and then they also finish the week against who do they have?
The Rockies.
It's time for them to play the Rockies
in Colorado.
So they get the Rockies, and again, Dad, they're up to 2 wins, so they could be up to 5 wins by the time they face the Diamondbacks if your 5-game prediction comes correct. Because they get the Nationals 3 more times, right, Todd? And they feast.
This could be the week when the Rockies have the best week in baseball.
And they feast on the NL East. Just so everyone knows, the Rockies beat the Braves 10-1 on Sunday. That was it. They owned the Rockies on Sunday. Rockies owned the Braves on Sunday.
Todd, so they won 1 game out of 3. If they sweep Washington, that means they will have swept Miami and the Nationals, which means, like, technically, are those major league teams?
To get rid of those.
I mean, what are we really saying here?
What we're really saying is when you add up all the Rockies wins, what's the percentage of those two NL East teams that they play? Because the Nationals, we'll see.
Hold on, I gotta go to the Rockies and find out.
They have 15 wins. Three against
Yeah.
the Marlins. So few wins. 3 against the Marlins. That's a lot against one team.
I know.
What was the bet if you went to Vegas and you're like, they're going to sweep the Marlins? What was that win? If you were like, I'm putting all this money on them sweeping, that would have been hilarious. Vegas is like,
they've already beat the Nationals once. I mean, like before this series.
So 5 wins against the Marlins and the Nationals of their 15.
I'm looking at April. They beat the Braves once too.
They belong in the NL.
This is uncanny.
Beat the Braves twice.
They beat the Braves twice. They've beat the Nationals twice, and they've beat the Marlins 3 times.
That's
half their wins.
Yep.
Half their wins are against the NL East.
They should get the NL East trophy.
Yeah.
For the most wins. The Rockies should get a trophy for beating a division. The most.
And do you remember the beginning of the season? We're all like, "Oh, this NL East, this is a division. This is really good teams."
They are. The Phillies and the Mets are really good.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking the Braves haven't figured it out. Man, the Braves are bad.
Yeah.
All right, so Dad, you think the Diamondbacks are gonna come back to earth here, possibly?
I'm hoping for miracles, but we got 90 games. That's a lot of miracles.
That's true. And then Todd's hoping. Todd's predicting the worst and hoping for the best. Well, that's your Batter 5 for the week. As always, we will be keeping you posted on how it's going. We'll give you the recap of last week's teams, and we'll continue to see how this week to week progresses. The one thing I find most entertaining is when the bad teams look good for a week, or when you have like the A's did. They had 3 terrible weeks. They're cemented down in last place just for 3 bad weeks. So you don't want to put them together. Don't want to string them up. So everyone, thanks so much for liking, subscribing, and sharing. I'm your host, Brendan. That's my dad. That's Todd. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good